What's up, guys? Um, okay, so I decided to share my full solve for Beyond the Map's Edge by Justin Posey. And the reason that I'm doing so is because I made two boots on the ground trips. I'm obviously missing something, but I do think this is the correct solve. So what I'm going to do is just go through the lines of the poem and then also some supporting evidence, and then you can be the judge. So yeah, just giving it away for free. Hopefully it'll help somebody. So we'll see. But let's get into it. Okay, so just to give you a little background how I came to this solve. So I solved this, I would say like the first week of May, uh, and I had solves all over the place. But one of the reasons that I started looking in this particular area where I came up with this solve is just following Justin's Twitter or X. This lady right here at the end of April put together this long tweet basically saying where she was searching at. This was roughly 3 weeks into the hunt. She had a pretty detailed write-up about where she was searching, and I've seen Justin reply to people on X, but when he replied to her, it seemed different, just the way that he said it. And I know he said similar things to other people, but this really caught my eye, so I kind of started looking in this area, and that's how I came up with the solve that you're about to hear. And you'll notice some of the places that she calls out is Tucker Creek, Fish Trap. She had a Maiden Rock solve as her bride, which a lot of people do. But nope, Fish Trap. I do think that refers to the Bait Bonanza, which is essentially the chapter that is about him building a fish trap. So there's a lot of clues that get you to look in this area. So we're just going to walk through them one by one here. Okay, as hope surges clear and bright. Now, we all know from the Q&A that Justin said this is the, quote, first actionable clue that gives you sufficient context. I don't really know how I felt about that, but I really do think that this line actually refers to one's own hope surging because you solved the poem. So at this point, you're kicking things off to go boots on the ground and your hope is surging. And also, if you recall in the Netflix doc, Justin started it off by saying Forrest's poem was a beacon of hopes and dreams. I think that kind of alludes back to this. But I also do believe that most of the lines here are metaphors and or double entendres with double meanings. And then in this case, I think it would refer to Hope Creek, which is a little northeast of Wisdom in the Anaconda-Pintler Wilderness. So that's where we're going to start. Note some of the other things here. Fish Trap, Wisdom, Marche Creek. So yeah, let's go to the next line. So as hope surges clear and bright, walk near water, silent flight. Now I know this one gets a lot of people because it seems pretty subjective in terms of how you interpret it. But one thing I'll say is that before I came up with this solve, from the beginning, my water's silent flight was a trout or fish creek, and I'll explain why in a second. But in terms of walk, so right next to Fish Trap, there is a La Marche Creek, which is right off the Big Hole, north of Wisdom. If you know your French, marche is actually the French verb for walk. As a noun, I believe it's a market, but as a verb, it is walk or to walk. And if you read the book, you know there is almost too many French references to count, and I think that plays on this. So getting to the water silent flight. So now we have a walk creek, and then water silent flight. So as I said, I believe this means a trout or a fish named body of water, with waters referring to the river, creek, lake, etc., and then silent flight referring to the way fish swims. So if you were underwater, a fish would appear to be flying silently. In the Netflix doc, Justin refers to a clue in Fenn's book for 9 Mile Hole by pointing to a fishing story with Fenn and his dad. And in Justin's book on page 20, there's a fishing story with his dad where he states, "You have to think like a trout. And this anthropomorphizing a fish reached its peak. Well, right below this trout creek is a fish peak. And La Marche Creek connects to this trout creek. So if you were putting it together, it would be walk near water silent flight. So this La Marche Creek runs right here to Trout Creek, which runs up right here just below Fish Peak. So if we are solving the poem at home, technically we would be right here near the edge of Trout Creek. So let's move on to the next line. Round the bend, past the hole, I wait for you to cast your pole. So in this solve, around the bend, past the hole, Justin is the one waiting for you at the start of a trailhead for you to cast your hiking pole. This is happening simultaneously as you're working through the poem. So this doesn't make the poem out of order, because if you are reading it as it's happening, it's in consecutive order. So if you listen to a lot of what he says, whenever he's asked if the poem is in consecutive order, top to bottom, he always says, yes, it's fair to say that the poem is in consecutive order. So he's talking in the present, but more on this trailhead that he's waiting on later. But in order for you to get here, you will have to go around the bend, and you will have to go past the hole to get here. And he also did say in the Q&A that this is walking distance. Technically, this is walking distance. Also, bear in mind, if you've seen any of Justin's previous recordings going back a few years, even before this hunt, his definition of walking is a lot different from other people's. I believe he mentioned in a Calazar's 2020 interview, when he was speaking to Fenn's poem, that when they were discussing that line, not too far, but too far to walk, Justin wanted it literally to be too far to walk. And I believe in his mind, he said that was 50 miles or something. Could have been 20, but I think he said 50. Either way, that's a long distance, I think, for most people to consider not walking. So just bear in mind that his definition is a little bit more loose than I think the average person. So bear in mind, we're still right here at the edge of Trout Creek. Justin is here, so round the bend, past the hole, I wait for you to cast your pole. In Ursa East, his realm awaits, his bride stands guard at ancient gate. So this is the edge of Trout Creek where you would still be. Here's Fish Peak over here. And so let's just get into it. So this is her foot of 3. This right here is actually the bride, and this is composed of Queener Mountain, her realm, queen. Behind that, note some other things. You have Kurt Peak, you have Rainbow Mountain. This is actually Little Rainbow Mountain. It's not shown here, so you've got a lot of references to the rainbows. I'll get to Kurt Peak in a second, but then you have Storm Lake Pass. So if this is the bride, Storm Lake Pass, most people know that a pass is almost like a gate through the mountain, right? So this is Storm Lake Pass. This is your ancient gates. Not only that is it this pass, but this right here, this ridge, this is the Continental Divide. This is important because a lot of people did think of the Continental Divide as gates to the American West. And you just so happen to have the Continental Divide that also has the Storm Lake Pass right there, and then the bride. Not to mention the name Storm Lake Pass. There is a lot of references to storms in the book. Almost too many to count, but I think it's like every other chapter. There's a few chapters dedicated strictly to storms, the stormy stakeout, just lots of different thunder, lightning type of scenarios that he paints in the book. So I believe that is in reference to that. And then you can look over here to the bride, kind of spelled it out. You have 1 foot right here, and then a foot of 3. So essentially 2 legs with 3 feet right here. And then you can kind of see her dress made out here, and then this would be her face. So she's standing guard at these ancient gates right here. Her foot of 3 at 20 degree, return her face to find the place. Well, if you are standing right here at the edge of Trout Creek, her foot of 3 is directly 20 degrees northeast of you. See, I put that here from Google Earth. And if this is her foot of 3, that's at 20 degrees, and the next line is return her face, well, this heart-shaped lake, I think that heart-shaped is important as well, is her face. So if you're thinking about how to get there, you're like, how do I return her face, right? Like, how would I get up there? Well, if you zoom in on the map, this is her face again, using a map view rather than satellite. there's only one nearby trail that's right here. So you have Upper Seymour Lake. This is actually important, but the only way to really get to her face via a trail is this trail that runs right here by Upper Seymour Lake. It's the only way that you can get there. And we will talk about this trail in 1 second, but let's talk about the checkpoint. So we all know the big news that just came out a day or two ago. Justin said that there have been multiple searchers, I think I'm quoting this right, multiple searchers that have solved the first 2 clues, and several people have been within 200 feet of the checkpoint. Now, a few things to unpack there. Even with everything he said, I believe I've been to the checkpoint twice now. I believe actually a lot of people have, because, well, I'll get to that in a second for that tweet on the checkpoint. But let's just talk about these Waterton references really quick. We all know that there's a crap ton of Waterton references throughout the TV show, the doc, and then Justin himself. It's also listed in the book. The Waterton Glacier International Peace Park is part of the map. If you recall this tweet from Justin at the end of April, some guy was asking him how does he convince his wife to go, and he said pretty much tell her that finding the treasure has better odds than most lotteries, or take a detour and stay at the romantic Prince of Wales Hotel in Waterton, again with the Waterton reference. And then in the Netflix doc, you see this Waterton Lakes map quite a few times, just kind of sitting out, that he wanted us to see. And then the biggest clue, in my opinion, for Waterton is the book cover. Justin did say in the Q&A that there is a clue in the book cover. And if you look at the Waterton Hotel, this is the view, and this is his book cover. So I believe Justin has spent plenty of time at this hotel. I believe this view right here served as the inspiration for his book cover. So yeah, and I believe there's a few more Waterton references as well, but these are the main ones. And why I'm referencing it is because that trail is called Waterton Valley. So I believe this is the checkpoint. For me, I had basically solved up into her face. I was just trying to return her face. And this, I zoom in and see this Waterton Valley Trail. This is actually known as the CDT Trail. But the Waterton can only be seen if you zoom in close enough on Google Earth. That's when the Waterton Valley will appear. Otherwise, there's not really too many references to it. I think it's just kind of locally known as the Waterton Valley Trail, but more formally known as the CDT Trail. But yeah, I think Google Earth is the only place that you're going to see this, like even on Gaia or on a lot of the other map apps. It will appear as CDT and not say Waterton. So to me, I was already thinking I solved it. I'm zooming in on her face, and I didn't really need any more confirmation. And then I zoom in and see this, and I'm like, oh, there you go. Like, what are the odds of that? Like, that to me was zero doubt. So this little break off right here is just below Seymour Lake, and then you would break off here and then walk all the way up to her face. So yeah, also in the audiobook, the extra chapter that was added, most people know that he references the checkpoint in that new audio chapter. Rule number 1, carved in stone, never shall wheel touch checkpoint soil, foot traffic only. While the Waterton Valley Trail is a no motorized use trail that starts here at the Seymour Lake trailhead. So this little, where you start at up to Upper Seymour Lake, is called the Upper Seymour Lake Trail. It's also the CDT Trail, and it's also the Waterton Valley Trail. CDT, Waterton Valley, just extends past it, but the trail that leads specifically to the lake is the Upper Seymour Lake Trail, but again, also known as the Waterton Valley CDT Trail. So yeah, I think this all confirms it. I had this solved before the audiobook came out, so when he mentioned this, I had already knew this was a no motorized use trail. So again, it was just sort of an extra confirmer for me. And then how you would return her face. So the Waterton Valley Trail, more popularly known as that Upper Seymour Lake via CDTX Trail, is 6.3 miles to the lake. And then once you get up here, there is this little trail that comes off to the side, Trail 2740, Queener Pond Trail. This trail specifically is not seen on any other maps except for Gaia. And if you connect the start of this Upper Seymour Lake Trail to this trail that comes off the side and map the distance, and this, you can only use this using the Gaia app, which is Justin's preferred app. If you connect that, the distance is exactly 6.73 miles. So it took me a while to even notice this, because in my Gaia app, when I was planning things out, I just knew that it said 6.7 miles. But when I looked at the actual distance, it was 6.73. If you recall, in the book, Posey's on the Road, there's a very strange reference to Justin calculating his dad's speed using mile markers. And when Justin's asked what's the speed, he says 67.3 miles per hour. And then in a later chapter, the Gracie Grail, he references, when he's buying that map, he says verbatim, perhaps a decimal point, that it jumped. I believe he said 2 places to the left, but just a decimal point jumping, and then the 67.3. I think that alludes to the 6.73 miles. Just a very, very strange coincidence when trying to map out this solve, and it's a lot of extra indicators as you're working through this. So that's essentially how you return her face. And then what is her face? So I've been here twice. It's an extremely, extremely beautiful area. You're completely alone. On the Gaia app, you can actually check the remoteness, and this is about as remote as it gets in terms of how close you are to an actual road or any type of people. This entire area is a little lake that is surrounded by these canyon walls. You can shout, you can scream, and you will literally hear your voice echo 2 to 3 times pretty significantly. I've never heard an echo like that. It was pretty crazy. I could definitely see this being as a place where Justin and Brandon potentially spent some time. I've got some more reference to that, specifically Brandon in this area. But it's a really beautiful area. It is a extremely, extremely difficult hike, just in terms of the elevation gained and the miles that you're going, but definitely worth it once you get up there. So I think this is the general area. And the biggest problem with this solve, and why I'm kind of giving up on it and just putting it out there, is because I cannot find an exact location for the life of me. So clearly I'm missing something, but I'm going to take you as far as I have it. So double arcs on granite bold. So this is just kind of a loose theory, but I think this makes sense just given his Q&A answers. Essentially, there are 2 hills that back up to this granite canyon wall. Now, this first picture was from the first boots on the ground. There was still too much snow, and we went in the middle of June. It was crazy how much snow was there. We hit about 3 to 4 feet of snow. I would say less than a quarter mile away from the lake. So obviously we couldn't search, but we did want to get up there and just kind of see what it looked like. These would be the double arcs. And then also notice this X that appears right in between the 2 of them. I think this is important specifically because if you watch the Netflix doc, which Justin specifically says in the Hollywood Reporter, no, it's either the Mystic Writings or the Hollywood Reporter interview, that the Netflix doc is supposed to help you more with the treasure itself, and the book kind of helps you along with the poem. In the Netflix doc, Justin, when he's going over Sunlight Basin solve, which I do believe is sort of a double meaning, and everything that he says in the book or in the Netflix doc should be loosely taken and applied to his own hunt. But he does mention that the cherry on top is when the snow melts, a giant X appears on the side of the mountain. So I don't know. I think that's pretty significant. All of these canyon walls are granite, more granite than anything. I think it's granite and quartz that make up the most of the composition of these rocks up here. But yeah, that would be double arcs on granite bold. It would also prevent any type of natural disaster from essentially ruining it. There could be an earthquake or something, but I think that's what he was referencing. If something like that did happen, he would know about it. But I think this would be a way to do it in a way that you wouldn't have to worry about anything getting moved around. So supporting evidence. I think all roads do lead to Anaconda or the Anaconda-Pintler Wilderness. And there's quite a few reasons why I believe that. So let's start with the railway lock. I know a lot of people wonder what this kind of means. Going back to the Waterton, Prince of Wales Hotel in Waterton, if you actually look up some of the details on this was actually developed by the Great Northern Railway. And the Great Northern Railway has a route that runs from Waterton Lakes, and it previously ran as far south as Anaconda down here. So I think all of these references to the trains are to get us to look at the Great Northern Railway, because they all kind of tie back to Anaconda and then also the Waterton checkpoint reference. There's other things in the dock too that go back to this, like the switching of the orb and the dog, I believe is the switchbacks, which there are plenty of these switchbacks here on this trail that you will run into. There's also some switchback here. So I think the switching of the orb and the dog is meant to reference the switchbacks of the trail. More supporting evidence. So this was super interesting. Could be just a coincidence, but it's a pretty crazy coincidence. So where we stayed at was the Forge Hotel, which is the actual closest hotel that you can stay at to this trailhead in Anaconda. As soon as you walk in the lobby, they have the exact same clock that Justin used in the Netflix doc. It is the exact same brand, the exact same one that's used. Might be a little bit hard to tell with some of these images from the screenshots from the Netflix doc, but it is in fact the same clock. And it was the first thing I noticed, and I walked in and just was like, "Bro, that is just extremely, extremely strange," but a cool coincidence nonetheless. More supporting evidence for Anaconda and the Anaconda-Pintler. So if you're staying in Anaconda, there's only one brewery, which is the Smelter City Brewery. And they have a seasonal beer that was voted the best beer in Montana. And it's actually called the Lemonade Stand. So if you go to the book, you notice there is a lot of strange lemonade references, quite a few. And particularly, there's one line in the sleep study where he mentions with the eagerness of a kid at a lemonade stand, which I always thought was strange, just because I don't know too many kids who are eager at a lemonade stand. It was just something that stood out. So I thought it was very interesting that this best beer in Montana, made by Smelter City in Anaconda, is called the Lemonade Stand. And then they also have the Great Northern Railway signs littered around the brewery. And then finally, more with Anaconda. So there is a now closed classic cafe in Anaconda that opened in the 1950s, and it was a VW Bug themed cafe, Volkswagen Bug. There's a few Volkswagen references, and there's a lot of Bug and Beetle references. I think these are the Beatles references that he's referring to. You can go by this and still see the Beatles in the window. Justin references ancient display cases with beetles frozen in time. I think this is a place that his grandpa probably took him and his brother, to eat when he spent the summers. I think this would be a pretty memorable place for a kid to spend some time in. They also have a 454 big block V8. Now, I'm not 100% sure if it's a 454, but this is a V8 engine that is used as a table stand. Have to see a different angle to see if it's the 454 big block, but it is in fact a V8, and that is a lot of coincidences again to this place. Now I know people may be thinking that these are man-made buildings, but I don't think these are hints or clues that help you with the treasure, because all of this was solved. I actually had to be boots on the ground. It's more just you call it confirmation bias confirmer, rather than hints or clues that actually lead you to the treasure. So more supporting evidence for Anaconda. So Justin also references a few copper A few copper references throughout the book. So he mentions how fear tastes like copper, and then where Tucson simmered like a copper pot. A copper pot could be, again, another metaphor or another double entendre, referring to the Goonies, but also referring to simmering copper or smelting copper. Most people know that Anaconda Smelter Stack is sort of their claim to fame. It's the tallest, I think, brick structure in the world. Pretty tall, almost 600 feet, but it was built by the Anaconda Mining Company for smelting copper. So again, I think these are just more references that point you towards Anaconda, which in turn, point you towards the Anaconda Pintler Wilderness. So let's talk about the surrounding area of her face. So in the Netflix doc, we all know when Justin holds up these two books about the Dutchman's Gold and then Tombstone, there's the Dutchman Creek that runs into Anaconda just behind the airport here. And then also Kurt Peak. So I think most people, when they hear the name Kurt, the first person that they would think of is Kurt Russell. Not everybody, but that was the first thing that popped into my mind. And I just Googled him, and we all know that he's famous for playing in Tombstone. His second, probably most famous role is when he played Elvis in the pretty popular hit TV movie. It was so popular, in fact, that he cameoed as Elvis in Forrest Gump. But this would make Kurt Russell as Elvis. He would be the king. Queener Mountain would be the queen, and this would be his realm, right? Justin also has random Elvis mentioned throughout the book as well, or he has one reference in the book where he says that sipping, it was like cappuccino, had him shimmying like Elvis or something. And then also in his IG stories that he's posted, he's used some Elvis songs, and then Elvis also famously sang, I forget the name of the song, but it has the lyrics, "As surely as a river flows." So yeah, I believe that is all in reference to Kurt Russell and in turn Kurt Peak. And then we also have Upper Seymour Lake, which Seymour Creek runs right into. And the Seymour is significant due to his Little Shop of Horrors reference, where Rick Moranis actually plays Seymour. The Venus Flytrap famously sings that song, "Feed Me Seymour." So I think that's important. And then again, I mentioned the Little Rainbow Mountain here, and then there's the other Rainbow Mountain right here. A lot of references just in this little area, and I think they're kind of too big to pass up, all being right around the area that you're trying to get to. I think it's too many to be coincidence. That's again why I do think this is actually the correct solve. So more supporting evidence for the treasure's location. We all know that he referred to hiding in plain sight by hanging off the side of a horse's neck. If you look at a horse's anatomy, it is the crest, and the neck is called the crest. And then also on a mountain, just below the summit, is the crest. This location, this hidden lake, is on the crest of the mountain just below the summit of Kurt and Queener Peak. Also, we know that he mentions the thermocline, where he talks about, in a deep reservoir, the thermocline, which is actually that middle layer above the sort of like the, temperature-wise, it's the ideal location where the fish like to hang out. He referred to those fish as the Goldilocks, and kind of references gold. To me, that is a reference to the treasure. But also think more importantly that this thermocline is a reference to the elevation on a mountain, which would be the subalpine region, which is just below the alpine and just above the upper montane at 8,500, between 8,500 roughly and 10,500 feet. The hidden lake is, I believe, at 8,800 feet, and then those hills go up to about 9,500 or so, which would be the double arcs on granite bowl that I was referring to. So I think all of that is in reference to the actual treasure's location. And then just moving on to the location itself. So I did want to show you guys some videos sort of the surrounding area. This is the south side of Kurt Peak, just before you get to the hidden lake. I mean, you are truly just out there in the middle of nowhere. But it really is a beautiful, serene lake. This is the southeast bank of the hidden lake. See, it's surrounded by the canyon walls. It's a gorgeous area. And then this is the north bank of the hidden lake. There's the double arcs on Granite Bold up there. And then here's a little babbling brook, which is the drainage that leads down those double arc hills that I was talking about, that leads right into the hidden lake. So yeah, we searched all up in this area, all on the double arcs, Granite Bowl. But again, we were grid searching, right? We didn't have an exact location. So some supporting evidence. The pen that's in the Netflix doc, somebody on Reddit figured out that this pen belongs to a company, or is from a company that is called Allegory. I do believe that, again, metaphors, double entendres, allegories, hidden meanings, most of what he talks about in the Netflix doc has a hidden meaning and should be applied to his own hunt. So I would take everything that he says, with a grain of salt. I believe he picked on true stories in his life and then turned them into allegories towards solving his poem. You see here when in that third episode, when we found out the treasure was been, just the way he smiles, his micro expressions throughout the doc, says, "Oh boy, I thought somebody's making something up." I mean, I think in that instance he is referring to himself, trying to get you to look into his hidden meanings. Same way, he gives that look when he says that Fen was between a rock and a hard place, right? I think a lot of people believe that the treasure is between a rock and a hard place. We all know the Narnia references in the book. There's quite a few of them. If you actually pull up a map of Narnia, this place essentially is Narnia. You have the frozen waterfall here, which is just off that Greener Pond Trail as you're making your way up to this hidden lake. As you pull into the trailhead, it is a lot like Christmas. You go through this essentially palace of firs on both sides of you. It's pretty crazy, but I think this entrance to the Seymour Trailhead is what all of the Christmas references were about, specifically Christmas trees. I think there's 12 or 13 different Christmas references throughout the book. And then adding to that, 9 months out of the year, I mean, this place is under 3 or 4 feet of snow, if not more, up here at the top. But that would make sense why this place, or why he would have so many Narnia references, is because this place essentially is Narnia. So the CDT Waterton Valley Trail, aka the checkpoint, and thinking about, does this place have special meaning? On Brandon's Instagram, he has this post here where he was in Montana, I believe, with Justin in August of 2016. If you zoom in on the shed that he took a picture of, they have this CDT trail sign. This CDT trail sign is littered throughout the Waterton Valley Trail because it is the CDT trail. It wouldn't be too far, from their grandpa's cabin either. So I believe that they did hike this trail a lot. And then also, if you look on Justin's X, he has this background photo of him and Tucker on crossing this wooden bridge in the wilderness. There is 2 or 3 of these wooden type of bridges on this Seymour Lake Trail that you'll come across. So, it's not hard evidence, but definitely supporting in terms of, that trail being the trail that you're going to take to find the treasure. Some more supporting evidence, the album artwork. So if you look at the album artwork, I think it's a pretty fair and safe assumption that this girl right here is the bride. Arcade has the playlist. I think most people would agree that this is Pleiades right here. Well, if you're looking on the north bank of the hidden lake, just above the X, this is just after sunrise. Pleiades, basically throughout the entire summer, would be just to the upper left of this X. So it would kind of line up with this album art almost perfectly. If that is Pleiades, if it is, I think this is pretty. I think it's pretty strong in my personal opinion, because this X would be above the face of the bride, so still above the bride here, and then again the Pleiades. So, and also kind of has this arcing range right here. It looks very similar if you sit down and go through this. And then this dried. I mean, these are mud cracks. Yeah, that could be. I mean, this is a dry waterbed. This would be water right here. So again, I think it's pretty strong, but let you guys be the judge. The Continental Divide. So this is a strange one. This could be a strange coincidence. You could try this right now, but on Google, if you search for just Continental Divide, the only thing on the map section that pops up still on the search page is Queener Mountain. Now, the CDT does run right through here. Again, this does make up the ancient gauge on Storm Lake Pass, but you can see how big the Continental Divide Trail. I mean, essentially it runs from the Bering Sea all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, and then it continues down to the southern tip of Argentina and South America. So it's quite strange that no matter where you are in the U.S., if you search for Continental Divide, Queener Mountain will pop up. Now, again, pure coincidence. I don't know how Justin could have or would have got that to show. It could have always shown. But I've tried this with multiple people on VPNs, incognito, private browsing, and Queener Mountain shows up every time that I've tried. So I'd encourage you to try it and check for yourself. But just was strange that they would show this little area right here where, I potentially think the treasure's at when you search for Continental Divide. So this is kind of a fun one. So if you take the logo, right, and you place it on the edge of the book, I believe somebody on Reddit found this, but they couldn't make anything of it. I had already solved it at that point. But most people also think that the outline of this book cover lines up kind of perfectly with the Beaverhead National Forest. So if you kind of tilt the book and you add the logo to the front of the book, or the front side book, so where the X would mark the spot, if you tilt it in just the right way, I mean, it points you right in this area, right by Seymour Creek. Put another view here too, if you were to tilt it slightly to the right. But either way, that X would put you essentially right here at the start of the trailhead, if not right on the treasure. And then also, if you were at the face and you just kind of zoom down into the distance past Queener Mountain, the only thing that pops up as the distance is Wisdom, and it would be in the shadow of these mountains. So that would be Wisdom Rests in Shadowed Sight. So yeah. So what are the main arguments against this solution? So I did drop this in Discord a couple weeks ago after my second Boots on the Ground trip, when I was sort of done with it. The biggest thing that I would say is it does not have an exact location, so you're still not retrieving. You're still grid searching the hidden lake area. But I do believe that it's something in the show that I'm missing, particularly something with the number 42, that would pinpoint the exact location. A lot of people are also torn about the hike mileage. So a lot of arguments that I saw in the Discord were stating that Justin wouldn't do that, or how could he have done that with a broken leg? When he says that you wouldn't have to hike more than a mile, I don't think you have to hike at all, and I think that's kind of what he was referencing, is that you can solve the entire poem from home technically, and by doing so you're not hiking at all. So he specifically says you don't have to hike more than a mile to figure out where the treasure is located. Notice he says figure out and not actually retrieve the treasure, and I think that's the reason why. So I didn't think he wanted to explicitly say that. I am kind of hung up about how he would do this with the broken leg, but it also depends on the timing of when he hid the treasure. I think he would have been 4 to 5 months out potentially still with a boot on the leg, potentially not. And then I also think that he probably used, an e-bike, the UBCO 2x2 e-bike he mentions in the book as being his secret weapon. That would make things a lot easier, especially if it's fully automatic. Um, so those are a couple things that I'm actually hung up on. But aside from that, I think that that is the full solve minus a few other things. I don't really have the time. I put in a lot of time over those first couple months just trying to map all this out. Plus, make two separate trips there. But yeah, the biggest hang up was just not having that exact location. Up until this Q&A, we thought we did have the exact location, that it would just be a matter of maybe following some of the drainage up to the double arcs and looking below the X. But there are so many rocks in that area around that lake. It's pretty much impossible to grid search that with any hope of finding, a small treasure chest. I think you still do need to have the exact location, but yeah, that's pretty much my solve, and just giving it up for free. Let me know what you think in the comments. But yeah, feel free to do what you will with it. Thanks.